p.m. Eastern as Manaji joins us for a live interview.
Welcome, everybody. Back another live stream on Huddle In. It's your boy Jared T123, joined with Manaji today. Manaji, super excited to have you on here. Very excited to talk with you and kind of get into some of the questions I'm sure you've answered before. But I've done some research, so hopefully we get some new material for you. But first and foremost, how you feeling?
I'm feeling good, GM. It's a good day to have a good day.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to preface that. So we played the little promo video. I put that together, and I use like some of this AI voice for the voiceover. Um, and we are pronouncing that right when I say Manaji, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. And I had done a little bit of research, and as far as I can tell, like it's a pseudonym. Um, First things first, does the pseudonym mean anything? Is it just a name that you like the sound of it? Like any backstory behind that?
It actually sounds very much like my real name. When my dad was learning English when I was really young, he would pronounce the Z like a J. So that's how that came in. And then one of my internet friends who lives in Atlanta added the I to it. And then it became like Manaji, and then became Lil Manaji, which sounds like a rapper's name, and also because I'm on the shorter end, so it just kind of stuck.
That's funny. So threw up the fingers there. I live in Atlanta, so I always love it whenever Atlanta gets rep. It does have kind of a little especially with the Lil in there, kind of a rapper kind of tinge to it. So I gotta ask you got bars for us? Like what you got?
I don't have bars. No, I don't.
All right. It was worth a shot. But one of the questions I do want to ask is, and we're gonna talk a lot about your work, but when you're in your work state or anything like that, is there anything in particular? You got headphones in? Are you typically listening to music, or are you more focused on the moment?
I tried when I first started with rooftoping or just editing photos and things like that. I used to listen to a lot of EDM, but I've really stepped away from all of that because I kind of just want to be more present in the moment and take in my surroundings and take in all the sounds and just have the full experience. I don't want to kind of, I guess, rely on other things to enhance the experience. I just want to take it in as it is.
That makes sense. And it makes a lot of sense to me. It was especially EDM, and for instance, I feel like it's so if anything, I was thinking maybe something more calm. I know I follow a lot of the photographers in the space. I know Kath, she listens to a lot of classical type stuff. I know Drift is a big Nip fan. So that's interesting that EDM's kind of your bag right there. Especially while you were working, I would imagine it'd be a little distracting at times. But um, one of the things, and I think naturally, just being dead ass with you, when I see some of your photos or I see some of your videos, I can't lie, and you probably get this a lot. It kind of gives me anxiety. I'm like, oh my gosh, so I showed my wife, and she's so nervous. She's like, oh, what is she doing? There was a crazy story that you had shared on a previous interview about how you had slipped. And one time I had spoken with Drift, and he kind of says that he kind of keeps that, he's just focused on the moment. So I assume how you allow for those thoughts to not creep into your mind is you just, again, just staying present in the moment, right?
Yes, that is extremely hard to do, though. I'm not going to lie, those thoughts 110% creep into my mind. When initially before strengthening my presence on social media, I didn't really have to deal with any of that. But TikTok is wild. The audience on TikTok they're very blunt and they're crazy. And they're always one gust of wind, or what if you slip? And I'm reading all of those comments, kind of when I'm out there, I'm remembering those comments. They just come to the forefront of the mind. So then I noticed that after just putting my stuff out there on TikTok specifically, I started getting a little bit more cautious, and just refrain from doing a lot of things that I used to be comfortable with. But it's really hard to stay present.
I bet. Yeah, it's it's certainly not for everybody. So it's interesting how you taking that up. So I have a couple questions centered around that. So when it comes to like maybe a location scout or something of that nature, what are there certain characteristics you're looking for, or is it like I'm sure there's a communication between people where you can, hey, maybe less security here, this might be more conducive to a shot. But I guess from an artistic standpoint, is there anything you're looking for when you go and you choose some of the locations that you find?
Um, from an artistic standpoint, I don't really choose locations like that. It's more like, okay, this construction site's going up. It's going to be like one of the tallest in New York City. Let's go hit it. It's just like a list, of things to cross out, or just like it's more like, okay, this one's going up, that one's going up. I haven't done this one yet. Let's just do all the things, and see what comes out of it. Because like I can, do my research and find other ways, like using a drone or Google Earth or whatever, to kind of like plan or kind of get an idea of what it looks like from the top. But it's really different when you get out there, and then when you're in the moment too. Like a lot of the things that you've planned or want to shoot kind of also go out the window, because we generally have like a very limited amount of time, and we're rushing, or like things come up unexpectedly. So for me, it's more like I try not to plan, and it's just we'll just go out there and see what happens.
I like that. I like that too. Kind of the next thing I have. Do you read much?
A little bit.
Would you have happened to have read Rick Rubin's new book?
No.
I think you'll find, if you get a chance, I think you might find that interesting. Obviously, he's worked with all sorts of different creators, but one of the points he touches on in there is not necessarily planning everything, allowing for improvisation to create, and that creative, like the room, to work with. When you actually have arrived at a location after you've made the dangerous trek, you're up there and things like that. What are you looking for in a shot? So while you might not plan a location artistically, I assume there's different things you look for when you're actually shooting, right?
Yeah, I specifically gravitate towards like interesting views, like unique views that haven't been captured from ground level. As most photographers, have like a lot of the same shots, especially of New York City. So that is usually what I gravitate to, or like just the best view of like cool skies, or just like something dramatic I can capture. And then on top of that, like some of these buildings have really unique like architecture and structures. So just like kind of incorporating that into a shot is also fun.
Yeah, no, I can imagine you've seen a lot of things. So speaking of, I know you mostly hit New York. Do you travel at all and do this? Like, have you gone maybe international?
I have. I've been to London and Paris for exploring, also Italy. I've been to Toronto, and a few other cities in the US, like Atlanta and Chicago, Houston, NOLA.
So I got to ask if you're able to give the information, where in Atlanta did you climb?
Well, yeah, I think I can share. Are you familiar with the Blank Bank of America building?
Yeah, it's the biggest building.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh, that's crazy. I did a helicopter ride once and we flew like right near the top of it. So like you climbing that is insane. I'm curious. So I'm going to throw New York out of it. You can't choose New York. What's your favorite place to climb?
I like Miami. I like that it's warm and it's on the water and you have epic sunrises and sunsets, and there's so many construction sites, and the buildings are like the height is very much comparable to New York City. So yeah, I really like Miami. And you also get like really cool weather conditions. Like you get like a bunch of fog coming in too.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. The warm weather doesn't hurt, right? Especially like if you're used to New York. You said you spent some time in Toronto and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's not bad to go get that Miami flavor in there. all in all, what from what I've read from your site and then what I've gathered from research with you and whatnot, um, what have you learned? This is a fairly new endeavor. Like you've been doing this for years at this point, but still relatively new. What have you learned from this that you can, maybe move into other aspects of art as you progress?
I think the biggest thing I've learned, well, my intention for starting rooftoping was because I wanted to find myself through a new activity that I've always been interested in, and it was challenging, and I didn't know anybody that was doing this, so I was like, let me just throw myself into this and see what happens. So I found myself, I found my faith, and in that journey, and we're going on like 6 years now. So in this span of time, like I think the biggest thing I've learned is that to just be really strong in your identity, in your beliefs, and in who you are. And in order to do that, you have to know who you are first and what you believe. And then secondly, like you just have to learn not to give into pressures, whether that be societal and cultural pressures, pressures from family, pressures from just the innate desire to want to belong and fit in, and not like compromising your values for any of that. I think that's my biggest takeaway from this hobby.
That's great. That's great. I mean, um, yeah, I mean, staying true to yourself and your own values obviously is important. Um, what's 2023 looking like for you so far? Like, I know there you have access to the different platforms out there. There's there's a huge, I'm sure as you're aware, there's a huge open edition meta going on right now. Do you have any plans to dive into that? Like, do you have anything that you're gearing up towards for this year?
This year specifically, I want to focus on more international travel, and just creating art in other countries, like countries that haven't really been explored, like in the Middle East, and Africa, South America, um, things like that. But then also, like when it comes to like just art and NFTs, I have been kind of like going into this realm of like taking my photography and layering it with like digital art and like motion graphics, just to kind of like blur the lines even further, because like a lot of people will look at like, I think it's largely because of my editing style, they'll like wonder if like, is this real, and and that's part of the goal with the photography, to have people question, is this real, and question their own reality. And then so I want to take that further with like digital art and like blend in elements of my reality with things that are clearly not real. And right now I'm fascinated with like the concept of like black holes and portals and vortexes and all of that, and what does that look like. And I recently just put out an open edition, and I don't like the whole like what everybody's doing in terms of just like very short amount of time, unlimited, and just kind of generating the FOMO and attracting like the degen side of collectors. So I'm not really going that direction, but I feel like anybody who's like picked up my art so far has done so because they actually really like it and they want to keep it. And it's like a more of a long-term investment for them. And so the last open edition that I put out, it was me standing on top of a bridge in New York City, but the background was, I turned it into like a whirlpool portal situation. And the inspiration for that was this movie. Well, it was partly Doctor Strange and partly this movie Coraline. I don't know if you're familiar with that movie, but when she opens the door to step into the other world, it looks like she's going through like this portal vortex situation. So I kind of want to like do more of that and like see what that looks like, and just find new ways to express myself and take that level of self-expression to a new level for myself. And then also, I recently got my skydiving license. So I want to kind of create art with like in that world and see what that looks like. So yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the portal queued up. Jackie, if you could share that with us. So that was it right there. I do like that. I do want to mention. So I like Neil Gaiman. I think Neil Gaiman is a really terrific author. Funny story about Coraline. I'm not sure if you knew originally how it came to be. That character, he meant to write Caroline, and he spelled it wrong and stuck with it, which I found really, really interesting. Sorry, random Jeopardy fact for you if you're ever on Jeopardy someday or something like that. I'm curious about the editing though, because that really is really one way to distinguish. Obviously the shots are one, but then even editing them further. What's your editing process like? Because I know that can be like extremely like laborious, where you can get stuck in editing for hours, or maybe you find the right touch and you push it out right away. But what's that process like for you?
So yeah, I'm definitely the type of person that will spend hours and hours and days, months editing and revisiting a specific piece. So most of my edits do not come right away. And so I start with like in Lightroom, just doing basic color correction and all of that. And then I'll bring it into Photoshop and see what needs to be enhanced, fixed, healed, cloned, etc. Any imperfections that need to be removed. And then like for that specific piece, like the portal and more of the digital art motion graphics work that I want to do, that's mostly done in Photoshop and After Effects. So it's just learning, because I'm learning at the same time, learning different techniques that align with the vision that I have, and experimenting and going back and forth between like Photoshop and After Effects. And takes a really long time for me.
I think it takes a really long time for most people. I do some editing on my side, and it's nowhere near what I'm sure you're doing right now, and it's laborious. But you mentioned something in there when you said imperfections, and I'm curious what you mean about imperfections, because I have some more questions about that.
Well, sometimes like there's like, I don't know, random like dark spots or like not scratches, but like like stuff on the lens, like dust and things like that I need to have removed or cloned out. And then sometimes it's like there might be like graffiti on the side of a building that is really just not it. So I'll fix that and remove that. Nothing really to like change the image itself, but more to just like that really just shouldn't be there. So
Gotcha. Yeah, and it's interesting because sometimes the imperfections, like even if they're little or subtle, personally I think that they can add some to it, especially like from a music aspect is like the first thing that comes to mind. Like sometimes somebody will mess up and like you can hear it very subtly, but it gives something a flavor that it wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think you can see that a lot in art. So, you know, who knows? Sometimes maybe there might be something there, whether there's a little bit of grain in the film or that's a particular series or things like that. But um, to each their own, I suppose, right?
yes.
Along those lines, with the imperfections and whatnot, I know that there's a lot of I've spoken with photographers before as well, that sometimes like choosing what you actually release as work, whether for sale or otherwise, um, can be tricky. So like there's one person I knew that like sometimes they said that I don't release the best shots sometimes. Like it's just a moment that I had that I really enjoyed. Uh, have you ever encountered something like that?
I think anything that I've released, like I personally love, I personally feel is like in the list of what I would consider my best. And I feel like it has to be for myself. I don't feel like I'm there yet mentally to like put out work that's just not 100% my best yet. And I think that there's some goodness in that, that you can just put out work that you don't feel is your best because like it's just part of who you are, you know, part of your journey. I'm just not there yet. And I want to be there. I want to be more like raw. But for me, it's like everything I've put out, like if it's not my 110% best, if I am not in love with it, then I cannot put it out.
I feel you. I feel you on that. That makes sense too. And when it comes to back on the kind of the topic of editing and kind of some differentiation type stuff, have you played much with the AI side of things and like tried to like really started to incorporate that at all?
I have. I'm actually like very curious about integrating AI on top of my photography, or like layering it with it or blending it somehow. I did this charity project a couple of months ago. There was like massive flooding in Pakistan, so we were and also Puerto Rico, so we were raising money for both of that, and it was like a collective. And the piece that I created was me sitting on top of a bridge, but I used AI to make it look like the water was kind of like it was like rising, or it was like higher than normal. So that was cool. Like the top half of the piece was a photo, but the bottom part was AI generated. I also want to get on Tezos, and for my Tezos work, the direction I want to go is mixing and blending my photography with AI to create more like otherworldly and just like supernatural and just like things that are like just not real, like fantastical, add fantastical elements to my photography work. So
That sounds pretty cool. I'm excited to hear that. I'm a big Tez fan. I've collected some music and some other things over there. Um, have you ever released like I've seen the TikTok and whatnot. Have you ever released like your BTS footage of like maybe your edit process, whether time lapsed or otherwise?
I have not. I've never shared my edit process, like not as footage or anything. Maybe I'll share like a little, screenshot here and there, but not yet.
Yeah, it just occurred to me that could be a cool thing. I personally like seeing BTS types things, so that'd be interesting to see. Because especially because I know obviously you put a lot of care into what you're doing, so seeing that even on a time lapse version would be crazy. You had mentioned that you wanted to travel like potentially like to the Middle East and some other things like that. Did you have a particular place in mind?
Um, Jeddah in Saudi Arabia. Very like, because Saudi Arabia is like changing everything when it comes to tourism and just like modernization, and opening things up. And there's a lot of construction going out there. Especially in like Jeddah, and that is like a very unexplored area, for a lot of reasons. I also feel like with that, like I'd kind of blend in to an extent, wouldn't stick out like a sore thumb. And so I'm not sure what that is going to, I guess, like what kind of experiences that would lead to. I'm just curious to find out and just, be in new terrain.
Have you been out there before? Because you spoke with kind of a familiarity of it.
I've been to Saudi Arabia before, but not to that specific city, and not for the purpose of exploring, just more for religious purposes.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, I think that would be super interesting. There's all sorts of, and obviously the architecture is even different out there too, in especially like the old architecture. So that could be interesting. Could be really interesting. I think you get some cool shots of that. Do you ever travel like? So I think originally you're from Bangladesh, right?
Yes, I was born in Bangladesh.
Do you ever go there?
We recently just went, my family and I, in September.
What was that like?
It was good. It had been a while since I had went back, but we have like, here in the U.S., it's just my immediate family and me. We don't have any other relatives or cousins or anything like that. So everybody's back in Bangladesh, or in somewhere on the Indian subcontinent. So it was just really nice to kind of like be surrounded with family, because I don't get that experience here.
That's great. No, that's really great. I've got some friends from there that they travel back. Did you do any exploring while you were there?
I didn't. When I travel with my family, I don't do any exploring. It's too much for them in terms of like worries them too much. So I'd rather not.
Yeah, that'd be a surefire way to probably catch some flack, right? So, um, it's interesting too, that you've gone into this. Curious, like, is this now what you see yourself kind of doing for the foreseeable future, or have you? Not that I expect you to be like, no, I'm quitting, but like, do you see other parallels that you can see yourself getting into?
um, I don't see myself doing this for the foreseeable future. Just I think like if it was legal, sure. The illegality of it makes it not something that's very sustainable, especially if you want to have like some sort of family. I feel like, or raise kids in any way. Like can you imagine like doing something illegal and just getting locked up? And I can't see myself doing that. So yeah. I am trying to look for like a legal pathway, which is why I chose skydiving because I feel like it's similar and I feel like it's an evolution of rooftoping. And if I ever choose to like get into base jumping too, that it ties into rooftoping as well to an extent. So those doors are open, but they're definitely a lot more legal than what I'm doing right now.
For sure, for sure. And I'll tell you this, like you're super brave. Skydiving's one thing, base jumping, whew, scary. Um, I know that everybody kind of does the urban exploration without any kind of safety gear. Have you ever considered like, mm, maybe I should use safety gear type of thing? Like, is there an easy way to even implement that? Like, I don't know that there's even an easy way to do that, right?
I've never used safety gear myself, but I've seen a few people who kind of like they rappel down the building sometimes, or they like, they're like swinging off cranes, but they have like they're roped up and they have that gear. I don't have access to any of that. I don't know how to use any of that. I just out here free climbing. And obviously I'm not going to do anything that I'm terrified of or I feel like it's too risky. So yeah.
Yeah, I got you. Do you rock climb?
I've tried my hand at it. It's definitely something I want to get more into. I just haven't gotten around to it.
Gotcha. Gotcha. I'm not going to hold you a whole lot longer. One of the last things I wanted to touch on with you is I did really appreciate you, like, your going towards causes, right? Um, Whether that's flooding, like you mentioned. I think I'd read something like causes towards Ukraine and different things like that. Um, do you have any specific causes that you're working with right now?
At this time, no. But I'm constantly like on the lookout for like how can I use my art to make the world a better place, to have it, stand for something beyond just me and what I like to do. And I I don't know the answer to that yet, but there's different opportunities that come up here and there, and hopefully something comes up where I can just have this be something that's bigger than me. Because I feel like if you're not using your work to make the world a better place, like what's the point? You know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think you've done an incredible job, like building of the platform for your voice. So I love that you have that in mind as you're doing everything. Um, and small plug, we would love to have some BTS type of coverage or any kind of coverage you have, if you wanted to put that on Huddle In at some point. But no pressure at all. Um, well, we sign off. I want to encourage everybody, please, 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 please tap in with Minaji. I believe on all socials it's LILMAHNAJI. And you can find her everywhere. But I would like to hand the floor over to you, if you want to have any parting words or message that you'd like to send to everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me here and just like taking the time out to chat with me today and like get to know like me and my story and my art. Really appreciate that. And then for anyone else who's listening, just do the thing that you're afraid to do, because life is on the other side of fear.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, it's everyone gets a little paralyzed by fear, and you just pushing through. The other side, it's not nearly as scary as you may think. So, Manaji, thank you again so much. Really appreciate your time. Again, I encourage everybody to go follow Manaji. Go check out what she has on Super Rare. If you like it, put a bid on it. And just show up. Show up, show some support. Sometimes retweets count too, guys. So like show some love. Thank you again, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you.